So the Sando Aqua monster has always been a relatively mysterious predator in the Star Wars franchise, and believe it or not, it still is. We don't know too much about this monster as a whole here, and it's, well, an apex of an apex predator. It's a super predator. It's the top of the food chain in Naboo. At least until Darth Vader comes around, then you know he rules everything. So today we're gonna throw him in the Cenozoic seas, or the Pleistocene age here, where this actually may be one of my shortest survival videos ever. Well, and this is simply because the Sando Aqua monster is literally kaiju sized, you know? It weighs around 54,000 metric tons, and its breeding habits are pretty much the same way as any aquatic mammal, like an otter, or maybe even to a degree I was gonna say a platypus, but maybe in the likes of a hippo. In all honesty, they mate, they leave, the male leaves, and the female gives birth to a young one that's actually not too far off from their size, probably around the size of their leg, believe it or not. Here, and considering the fact that they do, and they are known, excuse me, to breach the waters to prey upon land predators or land animals as well, it says a lot here. And keep in mind, they can live for over 932 years. Yeah, you heard me. Now, they prey on things like the Colo crawfish and I think it was the Banta, which are the land creatures as well. They prey upon the Colo crawfish and the Opie sea killer as well. And whatever they can honestly get their jaws on, minus their own species, because again, it has not been recorded yet. So, with that being said, here, their hunting strategy is pretty simple. They can ambush their prey in the dark or even in broad daylight, snatch them up, and will use their jaws to crush them, and they can even rip their prey apart with their forelimbs. So, normally, this is the part where I get into prey items. However, this is vastly different today. You see, the reason why I'm not talking about prey is because everything in this scenario is prey. Yeah, maybe I should have did the Colo crawfish instead. But the thing is, the Sando Aqua monster can prey upon everything. Zygophysator, Brachmophysator, any baleen whales that existed during that time period, any seals that lived during that time period, okay? Even Leviathan Mevellini and Megalodon Carcharodontis are on the menu, okay? And when it even gets to the modern day, which I'm actually going to have to mainly do here, it's, again, very one-sided. It's very possible that with their species around, the whale population can actually just increase. But then again, the problem is that their size is a very big hindrance. Now, again, our oceans today do harvest and do have a lot of mysterious creatures within them. Some of them we just simply haven't discovered, yet they've been there for years upon end. So, in all honesty, the Sando Aqua monster, which is one of the greatest examples of deep sea gigantism, is definitely going to be left uncontested. But the thing about it is that size can also harm it here. You see, going into the smaller waterways like the rivers and streams here, the Sando Aqua monster, again, would really not have any competition, even from other crocs like Pyrosaurus and Rampasuchus and stuff like that there. He would just go uncontested. And the thing is, though, that could possibly balance the environment and possibly destroy it. I mean, we don't really have anything to counter a kaiju in modern day times. This could actually affect the sea in both positive and negative ways as well when you actually think about it here. And the thing about it is very possible some extinct species may survive because of the Sando Aqua monster. However, the Sando Aqua monster in long term may not survive. It's very possible here. Because again, they don't even know if the species is going to go extinct. Plus, again, the amount of food it may take to, well, sustain such a big monster is not around. For example, look at Kong from the Monsterverse here. Kong himself is over 300 feet tall. Okay. And again, I know his height is possibly bigger than that, but understand I'm trying to just keep it brief right now. Kong was running out of food on Skull Island. And again, he doesn't have a slow metabolism or possibly a slow digestive system, is what I'm trying to say here, than the Sando Aqua Monster, which would definitely allow it to have that deep sea gigantism like most of the other creatures on Earth today that have deep sea gigantism, like the blue whale. Now, Kong himself here would eventually starve if it wasn't for Monarch, then providing him with tons, if not thousands, of pounds of fish along their way. And then the sheer fact that he was also eating a lot of the resources on Skull Island because he was, again, a growing boy. The Sando Aqua Monster could potentially face that issue as well here, which is why we're actually going to help it. You see, reducing the size of a creature is something that I'm not really too much of a fan of. But again, when it comes down to it, you gotta do what you gotta do in order to actually help out and preserve the species. Now, how do I think the Sando Aqua monsters would adapt? And well, the first one I want to talk about is a deep dweller. Now, a deep dweller, in my opinion, is a creature that would be able to prey upon the more cetaceans of the sea, the whales, the dolphins, even the orcas. Now, we're going to have to drop the Sando Aqua Monster's size to at least the same size as a blue whale. And I actually think that would be a bit more realistic. If not, they could actually be slightly smaller than blue whale. Matter of fact, I think the best size for them would actually be around the same size as a humpback. Now, you might say, Legendary, why the size of a humpback? It's because that the Sando Aqua monsters are going to be a bit more maneuverable, and they're actually going to have less weight in this one. I wouldn't put them in the same weight, but they would definitely be around the same size and length as a blue whale here. But they would still have their muscular physicality when it comes down to it. Now, considering the fact that most whales, if not all whales, unless they're males here, do travel in groups here, I would actually do the same for the Sando Aqua monster, but not in the same light as a pod of whales. That would be just horrendous and definitely scary here. I would give them the same life as otters, where there are a dominant male, a dominant female, and then there's their children, which I do think the Sando Aqua monster, likely with a much higher population and much higher food source, they would definitely reproduce a lot more to compensate for it. I don't see them giving birth to, more than just 3 children at the bare minimum. I would definitely say they mimic the same life as the otter, and then that could lead to them developing new hunting strategies, developing new hunting techniques in general, and they would be able to prey upon anything. They would be able to prey upon the whales, the dolphins, and even the giant squids of both prehistoric and current time periods as well. So this would mean the Sando Aqua monster would be the most formidable, if not the dominant predator of the ocean. Now, the only creature I think that would be able to threaten a Sando Aqua monster, in my opinion, would definitely have to be a orca. That's the only way I could actually see here. Because again, the deep dwellers are massive, but the only way to actually kill one would actually be orcas. Using their pack hunting techniques and strategies here, and with them being, I would definitely say, generally smarter here, they should be able to overwhelm or isolate a young one from the parents and just be able to get them from then and there. However, in prehistoric times, they would definitely go uncontested, with the only creature being able to, hunt them being the Megalodon and the Leviathan Mevalini. However, again, due to their more pack hunting mentality, they would, I guess you could say, they would be the orcas of their age. Like, nobody would really mess with them. And considering they do like to go in more inland areas to prey on land animals as well, it would be a rare occasion for seeing a deep dweller inland and being able to attack something like an elephant, a hippo, or even the subspecies of, a member of this other subspecies that we're going to talk about here very soon. Now, in modern times, what would be the ramifications or the consequences of having a creature like the deep dweller? Now, there are one or two things I could actually look at here. And number one, there's whaling ships, and then there are also, cargo ships. Now, cargo ships and even cruise ships as well, excuse me, would definitely have to have a military escort, as there would definitely be fear that a Sando Aqua monster could eventually and maybe attack a cruise ship or something like that altogether. Then you have whaling ships here. Now, again, I am not a fan of whaling ships, so this would actually be pretty fun to capsize and destroy one on a regular basis. And believe it or not, if they are preying upon whales, I can see a moment where a whale, and unfortunately a deceased whale, is being dragged in, and a Sando Aqua monster, a deep dweller, just comes in and snatches it off the chain, but accidentally or just doesn't care, is driving the ship into the water, and it's picks up water and starts like just drowning the ship in general, meaning that they would be capsizing boats. And I actually think it would be very interesting to see like a parked cargo ship just start capsizing out of nowhere. I think it would be dangerous and I think it would be scary, but overall, I do think the Sendo Aqua monsters or the deep dwellers would actually be not too much of a problem, as long as someone remembers where they're most commonly portrayed here. But again, fishing and boating would definitely be a bit more dangerous. Now, let's talk about the other one, the land dweller, or again, the swamp dwellers. Now, these guys would have discovered that going into inland waters actually provides them with more prey. So they would actually start competing with the more crocodilomorphs in the area. These guys would basically start off from the infants of the deep dwellers, but would eventually go inland and start living there. Because again, there's a lot more prey and there's a lot more resources, meaning that they would eventually develop the same size as possibly hippos. I would actually give them the same bulk as the hippos, but they would actually be the size of a Purosaurus, meaning that they are a lot more dangerous than the original, or their competition here, excuse me. Starting to compete with Purosaurus, the species would actually do a whole lot better due to their group communication and to their grouping in general. And this would then lead to them eventually ganging up on Purosaurus and viewing it as a food item. Kind of like how otters do view and can, turn caiman into prey themselves here. Yeah, they would live the same lifestyle as their deep dwellers, except more of an inland balance to it. Now, during the modern day, these guys would again lose their size, but would still be very dangerous predators altogether, preying on things like elephants, hippos, and if they're lucky, rhinos. What I mean by if they're lucky is that if rhinos do come to the water, to drink and stuff here. So, with that being said here, yeah, these guys would be a dangerous to waterways here. The northern waterways that would have a bit more fur on them, but in general, I do think the Sando Aqua monsters would face a couple threats. Number one would be poaching. Now, I'm not sure what they would offer. It's very possible they could have an enzyme that allows for, to cure cancer, to cure any disease, no matter how potent they are. And then they would be hunted for it. And, well, there would be a 90% fatality rate when actually hunting Sando Aqua monsters. Keep in mind that in order to kill a Sando Aqua monster, you just gotta be him. Like, you gotta be Darth Vader. But even then, Darth Vader killed it from the inside out. So it's very possible that, this wouldn't have worked at all. Now, this would also be interesting because Sando Aqua monsters do live for possibly thousands of years, or at least 1,000 years in general, considering the oldest one is 932 years old. So this means that Sando Aqua monsters would likely evolve more over the years than any species on Earth. And they would have time for it too. I mean, their metabolisms were slow, and this allowed them for deep sea gigantism altogether. But overall, I do think the Sando Aqua monster would be a terrifying species to have in the more modern day, just as much as it was in the prehistoric times. Except over the years, I do think they will reduce in size, and eventually they will probably be the size around some of the biggest of saltwater crocodiles, if not flat out bigger than them in general. But that's going to be all today, you guys. I know this is a little different than the standard Survivor video, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Peace.
We have a saying. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
I also have a saying.
I don't care.